So hello, everybody. I am Sarah
Hello.
Grillo, and welcome to the February, hold on a second, sorry here.
Forgive me.
Yeah, sorry. Everybody, welcome to the February meetup for the Transparent Advisor Movement. I have Stephen Fox here today. He's gonna give us a talk on his practice management tips, but I just have a few announcements before we jump in. So first thing is, this is an inclusive experience as much as we can make it. So there is captioning available if anybody needs the kind of subtitles or the closed captioning. You could just elect the button on the bottom of the screen. If anybody needs a translation or if anybody has any disabilities that require my attention in terms of the transmission of this webinar, please let me know. And that applies to after the webinar as well with the replay. So just a quick few announcements. Tomorrow is pod day, meaning we are going to comment on each other's posts. We're going to post and then comment on each other's posts afterwards. This is something that we do to trigger better performance in the LinkedIn algorithm, but it's also something we do to foster camaraderie amongst transparency group members and to ensure that we are supporting each other's messaging on social media. So if you'd like to participate in our social media discussion event, it's tomorrow at 1 p.m. Let me know. And it happens just in a chat room on LinkedIn where we share each other's posts and then make sure that we're commenting right away. There is no March meetup because Immersion 2024 is happening next month, which we're all, I think, very excited about. So what we're going to be doing is just now collecting your names, your emails, if you would like to register for the April event, the April meetup, and you could just go ahead and click the link to include your email address if you'd like a spot for the April meetup. The topic will just be the top 10 learning takeaways from Immersion 2024. There is actually still one spot left for Immersion 2024. Originally, I know that last time I said that there was one spot and I filled it, but then now I got a cancellation. Excuse me. So if anybody wants to attend Immersion 2024, there is actually one spot left. Let me know. And so having said that, I will just turn it over to Stephen. And Stephen, go ahead and introduce yourself to our group and you could just jump in.
Hey, so yeah, my name's Stephen Fox, and I've been a member of, or not, I guess not really a member, but going to some of these meetings and appreciating what Sarah's been doing with this movement for a little while. And I thought it might be helpful to talk a little bit today about kind of what we actually do for clients for a flat fee and a little bit about how we do it. I think if you're in here, then you've probably already more or less bought into the idea that that's a viable path and that it's there are a lot of good reasons for it. But I want to talk today about how we do what we do and what we actually do for clients. So I've been flat fee for about 8 years or so since I started this firm. I think the only thing I want to say about that, because it's relevant here, is that one of the benefits and challenges of having clients pay us directly for services instead of just indirectly collecting commissions or paying AUM fees is that it means that the fees that they pay are much more salient. Like they just feel it and see it more. You see it coming out of your checking account or credit card or whatever every month. And that means that there's an additional challenge for us. It's more important to make sure the clients understand what they're actually getting for those fees and that we're earning it. I think that's mostly a good thing, but it is one additional challenge of this model. I think that's all I'll say about that unless there are questions. And I guess broadly too, as I'm going through stuff today, I have a bunch of bullet points of things that I thought would be helpful, but not really like a well-structured, organized presentation. So if you have questions about anything or something you think is important to add as I'm going through, please interrupt me. I want this to be a conversation instead of just me pretending that I know everything and have all the answers and sharing with you guys. So very brief summary of our firm. I mentioned I started it in 2016. We're an independent RIA that I started by myself with no clients right out of college. So I was in the Marines first, then I went to college, then started our firm and just kind of jumped right in. And we are now a team of we'll call it 4.5, working with about 150 households on an ongoing basis, plus hourly projects coming in and growing by a couple clients a month. one thing that's a little unusual about us is that we work with, let's describe them as young professionals rather than retirees or high net worth clients. And we have a very simple investment approach using just index funds. And also I recently started a separate tax prep firm that I'm applying some of these same principles to. So anyway, after I started that firm, I spent the first few years just trying to learn how to get clients and do financial planning in the first place. As I mentioned, I just jumped in with no experience. And so I definitely had a big learning curve in front of me. And I didn't really have the benefit of a bunch of mentors inside my firm working with me on a day-to-day basis. I did get a lot of help from other folks in the community. Run here in San Diego, just so many really generous, thoughtful people running their own firms were able to help me in a lot of different ways. But was by myself. And so I spent the first few years trying to figure out how to do financial planning and get clients to do it for. And then the next few years after that, trying to learn how to start expanding the team and develop and manage a team to also do financial planning for clients. And one thing that kept happening over and over was we felt like we were doing really good work for clients that they genuinely benefited from, and that we thought we were covering all of our bases and being thorough. And we kept running into client retention issues. We had this great onboarding process, a very in-depth initial planning where we felt we answered all the questions they came to us for help with, and a bunch of the questions that they didn't know they should be asking. And after 6, 12, 18, 24 months, somewhere around that range, a lot of the clients would leave just because they didn't feel like they had the initial pain points they came to us for help with. And probably some of those clients should have left. Like there genuinely wasn't a whole lot more that they needed help with. And so we saw it as mostly a good thing. Like they needed help, they came to us, they got the help, and then they went on their way. Nothing wrong with that. That's how business works every day, right? But a lot of those clients, we really felt like they should have stuck with us, that they had some things coming up in their life that we genuinely would have been really helpful for them as they were going through it. And if we had done a better job of having a good structure in place and having good communication to help them understand the benefit of what we were going to continue to do for them, that we would have been able to do more good for those people. And so part of the way that we solved that is we developed this annual service calendar where we just split the year up into 3 blocks of 4 months each. And each of those 3 blocks, we cover a set list of topic areas. It's pretty similar to what our initial onboarding process looks like. And so some of our other goals there where we wanted to help deepen relationships by kind of getting all of the administrative and task management and bureaucracy stuff out of the way, and use meeting times with clients to actually talk about them and their lives instead of just, oh, did you get that term life insurance policy? Oh, this and this are the steps to do that. Or, hey, whatever happened with that tax thing we were talking about? Let's make sure that you know what the next steps are for that. I didn't want to spend our meeting times doing that. We wanted to spend our meeting times talking about clients' lives with them and the things that we can't really do in between meetings. And one of the things that we did in conjunction with developing those service calendars is we transitioned to a different tool and like set of internal processes on how we do what we do for clients. So I'll screen share and show you guys what that looks like in a little bit. But any questions so far? I've covered a lot very briefly. Any questions about what I mentioned so far before I jump into what that process looks like?
Just how did it work, right? So you went through this transition, and did that actually improve your retention?
Oh yeah, it's worked great for us. So it kind of depends on how you measure retention, like over what time frame, and whether you should count people that went to hourly projects periodically, or people that left because a team member left us instead of us just deciding they didn't want help anymore. So it's really hard to measure retention, but I think if you use reasonable assumptions on those kinds of variables, we went from a retention rate of something like 60, 70% to something like 90% now. And besides that, a lot of the clients that we are working with, we have better relationships with, and they're getting more things done that we'd intended to get done together instead of us constantly harassing them for, hey, did you get that estate plan done yet, et cetera. So yeah, this stuff has really worked well for us. And should also mention that we transitioned to this beginning of last year. So it's been just over a year now we've been doing this, and been getting better and better along the way as we've done it more.
So I think this is what you're going to kind of go into, right? Is you talk about, hey, you don't want to spend your meeting time with the follow-up task type stuff. So I'm just curious to see how you go about that. Is it just an email? Is it nudge? Is it write capital tasks? Or whatever else you're going to show us. So I'm really curious about that.
Yeah, so I'll show you the tool that we use and how we put this together. I think the tool that we use doesn't really matter much, but the thinking behind it is probably very useful for some of you. So I'll screen share that real quick, and I'll walk you through some of the thinking behind it. Yeah.
About the topics, you said you do different topics. Is that personalized for each client based on their needs, or do you have like a rolling set of things that you cover each period?
So for each of those 3 blocks, the same topics are covered for every client, except that for some things we know are never going to apply for a client, we'll remove that from the annual recurring automation that pops it up on their shared portal. And for a client that has something that's unusual that needs to be added, we'll add that in for them. But for the most part, it's the same topics for everybody during the same time of the year. So this is the like a demo version of the shared board that we use. Maybe before I go into that, I can just briefly show you the tool we use broadly and how it's organized. So Monday divides projects or types of work up into what they call workspaces. So we just have it organized by like some admin bureaucracy stuff is all in here. And then there's a section for clients and contacts and compliance. All these different topic areas of the types of things that we work on are all in there. And then we have separate boards, which are basically like Excel spreadsheets on steroids, where you can tie in all different types of automations, outside tools, and you can have different column types like statuses and dates and such. And we have boards set up for pretty much everything that we do for clients. Like you can see here, we have boards for opening accounts and for doing Roth conversions and ACAT transfers and updating addresses for clients and everything that we do. And we also have boards set up for individual clients that are shared with them. And basic overview of the structure here. At the top, we have what we call to-do lists. These are things that can be assigned to individual members of our team or to clients. Part of the idea there is we want clients to have a very clear understanding of what's assigned to them. Like, what are we actually supposed to be doing right now based on your recommendations? And we didn't want to give it to them in the form of like a 200-page printout from eMoney with charts and graphs that nobody ever looks at. We didn't want to use the task management tool inside something like Right Capital because it's just very, very limited functionality. Like you can't do complex workflows, you can't do branching and assigning to different people and stuff like that. And we wanted to have very in-depth workflows and automations tied to it. And so this is just where they can see a combination of one-off tasks that we give them, like, hey, apply for a term life insurance policy. Here are the details for it and instructions on how to do it. And then we also have in here topic areas related to the specific blocks. So right now, this time of year, we're in what we call block 1. And these are some of the tasks associated with block 1 that you would see here. And for a lot of these, we have pre-built instructions built in for clients in the updates section, which is like where you have notes, conversations. And so when they first get onboarded, you can see here are some of their instructions on how we use Monday and why. And then whenever we assign them certain tasks, we'll put in conversations related to that task right here in context. And so it's really helpful to have like in context communication where we can see things like, let's say you're working with a couple and maybe the one member says one thing and then the other person says something else. And we have different members of our team talking about it. If you're using email threads between different people, then it becomes a giant mess. And we don't always have files in the right place. Not everybody has every piece of information. You don't know where to go for it. And so having in-context communication directly related to the task we're talking about is super helpful for everybody. Clients seem to really appreciate that aspect of it. So however you set this up, whatever tool you use, I would definitely recommend figuring out a way to accomplish that. So this is where we can also see things that we're working on for clients that they can see our internal conversations with each other. They have a better understanding of what we're doing for them between meetings that they don't always directly see and hear about, but it's nice for them to have some visibility into knowing what's happening, that we're actually doing something for them between meetings instead of just taking their money every month. Next section down below here is upcoming meetings. So we have that tied to an automation with our scheduling tool, where when someone schedules a meeting with us, it pops up here. And then we put in our meeting notes right in this section. And we just have 3 simple parts to our meeting notes. It's just an overview of what did we talk about together, and then client action items and our team's action items. And each of those are then translated into individual tasks to go in the to-do list section here. So clients like being able to see our meeting notes as well. And we don't have to like copy and paste it and reformat it to send to them as an email afterward, because it's right here where we already know they can see it. On the horizon is just what's coming up in the future, and this will usually be filled by the items for the other 2 blocks, the other 2 sets of 4 months, and the topics we always talk about during that period. But sometimes there'll be one-off things specific to that client that we add here that we know there's no action to take now, but there will be at some point in the future. And whenever we get close to the assigned dates, there's an automation that moves it up to the to-do list and assigns to that person, whoever it's relevant for. We do file sharing through here. So both directions, we can always have just one version of all the files that we need instead of conflicting versions. And then the archive section is just everything that we have done in the past. And that way clients can see progress that they've made over time instead of always questioning, like, what have they actually done for me lately? And what are the relevant columns here? We try to keep this simple where they can just select a status of, like, is this something that we're actively working on right now? Is this ready for review by our team, or has this been reviewed and archived already? And then along the top section, we have our onboarding questionnaire and some other useful links for clients. So it's kind of a quick overview of how this shared board works. And main goals there, we just wanted to have a way to show them progress made and stuff accomplished over time, easy tracking of tasks to make sure they actually do it, and working with us actually benefits them over time. We wanted them to see what's coming up next. We wanted file sharing, our meeting notes, better visibility over everything that we do so that they understand what they're paying for and why, and that they're actually getting those things delivered to them. That was our goal here. And we felt like it's tough to do that using CRMs and other tools built specifically for our industry. Like, we've used Wealthbox and Redtail before. I've looked at other ones like Juncture, and it's great that they are built specific for our industry, because that means that you can tie in with other tools. Like, for example, Wealthbox might be connected to your custodian. So if you're doing an account application, it's really easy to just pre-fill with all the info from Wealthbox, right? And if we're using an outside tool like Monday here, not built for firms like ours, that means we can't get those types of tools. But what we can do is a lot of the stuff that you see on this board, where we have automations to outside tools, we have tons of things that happen automatically, just much better granular control over building complex workflows. I guess I can't really show you those because there's a bunch of client info in there, but for all these types of workflows that you see of opening accounts and such, it's really well developed, where, like, we can do branching, where, let's say, if this thing happens, then it's assigned to this person with this deadline, and this file is sent to this person over here. But if this thing is true, then this is the path that goes down instead. And if we really want to do the best possible work we can for clients, and to work with clients that don't have access to most firms because they don't have $1 million or $2 million to invest to meet the minimums elsewhere, and our average revenue per client is a lot lower than most RIAs, that means that we have to get really thoughtful and efficient in how we use technology and processes. And this is one example of how you can do that.
Stephen, it's me, Sarah
Yeah.
Grillo. Somebody had a question. This might be kind of out of context here, but who places the trades, the client or the advisor?
So we use Altruist as our primary custodian. And the way Altruist works is you just assign them to an investment model. They have pre-built ones that you can choose from, or you can put your own in. And there's an automatic rebalancing tool. So as long as they're assigned to a model there, there's no manual trading to be done other than selling initial positions, if it makes sense to do that for that client.
And the next question is, how do the annual subscription fees get paid?
We use Advice Pay. And so most clients just have annual, or not annual, monthly recurring ACH transfers from their checking account. Some clients pay by credit card, same principle, just annual payment divided up into monthly payment amounts. And then also one other thing on that is we have a simple calculator that we use, and it's public for clients to see before they even work with us, that just looks at different financial planning complexity variables, like do they have equity compensation and rental properties, and like a single person versus a couple, and then it gives us a set number, and that flat annual rate covers both financial planning and investment management. We don't care about account size, but we use Advice Pay to help facilitate that.
Thank you. Now, a question on the chat. Does Monday.com replace your CRM?
Yes. We wanted to have everything in one place. So Monday is like our central hub for all client info and everything that we're working on, whether it's client related or not. And then as appropriate, we take info from here and move it to other places, like our financial planning tool, for example. And so we don't really email clients anymore. We've been training clients to directly communicate with us within Monday. and on the specific task or topic that they have questions about. So you'll see clients go into their to-do list here, and they'll create a task that says something like estate planning question. And then they will tag the servicing advisor that they're working with, or whoever else on our team that they know is appropriate for a certain question. They'll tag that person and assign them a task and say, hey, could you please answer this question about this? Or they can attach a file and say, hey, I got this loan estimate from my mortgage broker. Could you take a look at this for me? And we can see the file right there. And it shows up on our to-do list inside Monday without us having to proactively look at that board.
More
So we're
questions.
trying to reduce all the dumb admin work and just focus on like the higher value things for clients.
How much does Altruist charge? Questions coming in on the chat. How much does Altruist charge?
So we don't pay Altruist anything directly, neither do clients. When we started using them about a year and a half ago is when we moved most of the accounts over from TDA before the transition to Schwab. When we first started work with Altruist, they had the first 100 accounts were free, and then it was $1 per account per month. And they stopped that, I don't know, something like 3 or 4 months ago. They removed that charge. And so I think Altruist makes all of their revenue a lot of the same ways that other custodians do, of like collecting interest on clients' cash balances. And I don't know if they get payment for order flow, all those weird back channel things custodians do that I think most of us don't really understand as well as we'd like the chance to.
Stephen, we had some other questions that came in.
Yeah. I should pull up the chat here.
How do you manage staffing for new clients? Do the clients meet their advisor before they sign up or after? Let's start with
Yeah,
those.
so the way we do that is prospects can choose who they schedule with. And in most cases, whoever they do their initial intro meeting with is the person that they're going to be working with. We do have a lot of clients that wasn't true for. For example, over the last year or so, I transferred all the clients that I've been working with to other members of the team because I'm starting to move into like focusing on other non-client responsibilities. Like I want to focus on recruiting and training team members and doing more marketing and like stop neglecting compliance stuff and all the other things that I could be working on instead. So we transfer all the people I've been working with to other members of the team. And sometimes too, if we meet with a prospect and think there's a specific reason for them to work with somebody on our team, then we'll try and move them over. For example, Raphael on my team really loves looking at complicated student loan situations, and he has that additional student loan certification. So if we come across somebody that has an unusually complex student loan scenario, we might have them work with Raphael. So sometimes stuff like that happens. And I think that there's probably room for us to improve this in the future, but for now, it's just up to the client. They can look at website bios, they can look at LinkedIn profiles, they can just call and talk to me about their situation and see if I recommend working with a certain member of our team for one reason or another. But really, it's just up to them. They get to pick.
Okay. He says, I think you, Stephen, do much of the introductory call with the prospects, but then is then handing the prospect who says yes off to a new advisor. What does that handoff look like?
Yeah, I haven't actually been doing most of our prospect meetings. And maybe I should be. I'm kind of torn on this issue. Maybe somebody here will have some good feedback that could help us improve it. But I stopped doing the majority of our prospect meetings like a year and a half, 2 years ago. And part of the reason for that is I wanted clients and the financial planner who they're working with to both have some agency over the decision to work together or not. And I know that like looking at just our process and fees and stuff like that's not the only determining factor in whether a client wants to work with us. It's also personality, like just how well you get along with somebody, how easily you build trust and rapport with them. And I didn't want to take that away from the people on either side. And one of the downsides of that is sometimes a prospect will come across my name somewhere, like maybe they listen to a podcast interview I did or whatever, and they reach out wanting to work with me. And I have to tell them that, no, I'm not directly working with clients anymore. And that's initially just sort of set things off at a bad tone from their perspective. But it's necessary to do because obviously I can't work with all of our clients indefinitely if we want to try and grow a bigger team. So I don't know if maybe we should be having me do prospect meetings and then hand them off at some point. But right now, we haven't been doing that. Another thing is it would probably improve our close rate a lot because most of our prospects right now are going to a younger guy on our team who doesn't have as much experience, isn't as confident on that front. And his close rate's been pretty terrible, honestly. And so it's kind of costing us a lot of money, but I think there are good reasons to have him do them anyway. And he is getting better.
How are your fees determined? Questions on the chat.
We have a calculator. Maybe the question came in before I explained it. I'll show you. So, oh, I turned off screen share. Let me turn screen share back on. I'll also post the link in the chat here. It's just on our website. So, share screen again. Link is in the chats. So we just have a simple calculator here where they look at these kinds of variables like, is it a married couple or net worth in this range? Are they self-employed? Do they have a rental property? Do they have equity compensation? Stuff like that. And then once they answer all these questions, it just spits out the rate for them. And that way they can know before they ever talk to us. And part of the reason we have this is because we were finding as I started growing the team and having other people besides me do prospect meetings, we were finding that different people would give the same prospect totally different rates, just depending on subjective variables that really shouldn't be factored in. Like, I don't know, it could be what kind of mood we were in that day, or what topics happened to be covered or not during that conversation, or like we could be faced with the same scenario and each have different opinions about how much time we think that would take. And if we for clients and we care about having an effective, like efficient, scalable model to help grow our firm over time, we can't have a lot of subjectivity in something like pricing. And so I also just thought it's good for prospects to have an expectation, a reasonable expectation of what it would cost for our services before they ever talk to us. And that's tough to do if you just sort of decide on the fly during that prospect meeting. And so that's why we made this calculator. Here, I'll fill out the rest of these so you can see that it's done. Once you select an answer for everything, it gives you a number at the bottom. Did I not answer one of these? Well, that's not good. Maybe my calculator is broken. Okay, I guess I need to contact my website person and fix this.
It did the same thing for me, Stephen, and then I refreshed and I did have to do it again. So I did experience.
Right. Yeah, we have a spreadsheet version of this that we pull up during prospect meetings. But yeah, it looks like I might need to fix this then. Okay, we'll fix that. Hopefully that's not costing us any prospects that come across it.
Well, they could just use the Excel sheet, right?
Yeah, that's
Oh,
linked
that's
to in a
linked
few
to that.
places. They might come across it. If not, that's what we pull up during the meeting usually,
Yeah,
is
just
that
put it
Excel
in the
spreadsheet.
What is your planner's compensation model? So I'm assuming Rick is asking this question. Rick, I'm assuming you're asking, what is your model for how you compensate your planners?
Yeah. I mean, I'm not hiring yet, but as new to flat fee, we're kind of thinking out the old eat what you kill model doesn't really play here. And I want to focus on the planning, not so much prospecting. So are they like salary plus bonus? Is there a retention thought in there, or how do you work that out?
Yeah, so I see it as the firm's responsibility, my responsibility to do marketing and bring in prospects. And then their responsibility is to just meet with those prospects and for the ones who sign on to deliver that service. I think there's enough to learn about financial planning that that's its own entire career field should be getting all of their focus and time instead of learning how to get prospects as well, if possible.
Yeah.
And so the way that they're paid for that is we have a flat annual base amount. I think right now it's 40,000, and then we add in 30% of the annual recurring revenue rate for the clients that they have primary responsibility for. And then there are a few modifiers, like if they're a CFP that adds in 4,000 a year, other relevant credentials that adds in 1,000 a year each. And then there's a 1% increase per year for each year that they've been with the firm. So it's just a clear, like simple, transparent formula that they know exactly what variables to improve if they want to.
And what was that? What
make
was
more money.
that client part? Was that 30% of the revenue generated by clients assigned to them? Is that what you said?
Yep, that's exactly right. So let's say they're working with 50 clients for 200,000 annual revenue. That 200,000 number or whatever it is as of December 31st gets fed into the salary formula for the next year.
Got it. Perfect. Thank you.
And one of the downsides of this, though, too, is that like being a flat fee firm and collecting our revenue over longer periods of time instead of in big hits at the time of sale, like commission products, that means that if we're also doing marketing for them and covering all the costs of technology and support staff and such, that means that we are really far cash flow negative with a new planner who joins our team before they ever become profitable. And even if they sign a couple clients a month, that could easily be 3-4 years. And we could be at the lowest point over $100,000 negative for having had that person join our firm. So that's probably the biggest limiting factor on our growth right now. But I think it's worth it over the long run if we hopefully continue to treat people well and they stick around with us for the long run and build a lot of trust. I think that's the way to do it.
I'm sorry, are you bringing people on before you need them with the idea that they're going to grow into that role then? Or are you saying we have an extra 42 clients here that we can't handle, we need to bring somebody on and offload them?
Hiring ahead of need. Yeah. And so far, we've only been hiring people that are not ready to independently serve clients yet. So during that first couple of years when they are not work with anybody or not ready to, and they'd be far from being able to be profitable for us and they're costing us money overall, we fill up a lot of that empty time that they're not prospecting with doing pair planner type tasks for us and just doing joint meetings with other members of the team and hopefully helping develop them for a couple of years.
And they're on that same salary mode, but don't actually have the client revenue share yet when they're pair planning.
We switched them to not quite. We switched them to that formula I mentioned. Once we think they're close to being ready to be able to start taking prospecting meetings and work with clients. And we have like some of the criteria for that would be just that they have CFP exam passed, even if they haven't met the experience requirement yet, that they have demonstrated they can do this, and this specific tasks. We're trying to make it very clear what hurdles they need to get past to get to that point. And before we make them an IAR and switch them to that formula. And in the meantime, that first couple of years, we'll just like pay them a flat annual rate that we think is fair relative to their experience and their role, industry standards, but it's not as formulaic.
Yeah, thank you.
Look in the chat, see if there's anything else that came in.
Stephen, how does, sorry if you already covered this, how does Monday.com work in terms of compliance and archiving?
So everything that happens inside Monday, we can see. They call it activity log. Pull it up here. Every item in Monday, we can see the activity history for. Activity log. So we can see this item on this test board 1 year ago was created by this person, and it was copied from this board. And then this person changed this field to this. This person changed this field to this. And you can see exactly what happened for every item over time. And we also back up all of the boards pretty frequently as well to an outside source in case there's some issue with Monday and it's all lost. It's exported in the form of spreadsheets and separate file attachments.
How do
In terms of
how do clients feel about communicating with you over Monday? Like
some of them, some of them jumped right in and loved it, and like they were all about it because they're used to using similar tools for just managing household tasks and personal tasks in their own life or at work in their own jobs. And some of them have been really tough to make that adjustment, but it's only been a few people that haven't immediately seen the value of it compared to the way we were doing things before. And we sort of train clients too. Like, for example, if a client sends me an email with a question, I'll respond to them in Monday and copy the text of their email into the status update, the conversation inside Monday. And that's sort of like a clue, like, hey, this is the best place to talk about this kind of thing. And it works.
Did you build that out yourself, or did you hire somebody? I'm just kind of curious because it looks complicated.
Yeah, we did it ourselves. And I think it was a little bit of a pain to develop, but any tool that you're using, if you want it to be well suited for your firm's specific needs and the type of service you provide and your clients, it's going to take some time investment to build, even if
Yeah.
you are
I mean,
using something that has templates.
Yeah, it makes total sense. I mean, a lot of upfront, pain and effort, but once it's in place, I imagine it really, and especially when you've got multiple advisors, I can really see the strong benefit to, having the systems in place.
And there are outside consultants you can hire too for like Salesforce or Mother, any tool you want to use. As long as there's a certain number of users, there will be an ecosystem of consultants that develops around it. And I decided not to do that just for budget and because I wanted to know all the capabilities of the tool that we're using. And I was like very picky about exactly how I wanted it to all be built. And I thought the only way to really accomplish that is do it ourselves.
Hey, Stephen, Scott Zaleski. I have a couple questions for you.
Sure.
How did you decide on Monday versus others that are out there that may be comparable, like Airtable, Notion, things like that?
Yeah, I looked at those and ClickUp and Asana and a whole bunch of other ones because if I'm putting on all the effort to build this and to train our team and our clients on it, I want it to be something we can stick with for a long time to come, right? So some of the variables that I looked at were how flexible it is. I was thinking about like just from a future-proofing perspective, how easy is it to build in new types of things that we might need in the future? And I thought Monday and Airtable were probably among the most flexible options in terms of like the types of columns you can have on boards and the ability to interact with outside tools. I just thought it was super flexible. I liked that it is pretty easy to use for the clients. It's not very easy to set everything up. All these boards and automations that we built, that's a pain. But for the client using it with just a guest account, it's no trouble at all. They're able to figure it out pretty quickly.
Okay.
I was thinking about the cost of it. I like that some of these tools already have a large number of like huge enterprise customers, which means they're more likely to survive as a company over the coming years, and we're not going to lose them. I like that they already have a lot of clients who are either in healthcare or financial services. So that tells me that they take security really seriously. Yeah, those are some of the variables that I thought about. Oh, just do they integrate with other stuff that we already use or might want to use in the future? That was a big one for us. So yeah, a lot of the same types of variables that you'd probably look at for CRM or other tools you use.
Okay. And the other question I had is a lot of what you just showed us here. Obviously, you got client information in there, but it looked like a lot of it was workflow driven, task oriented types of things. And I'm just wondering from a CRM comparison standpoint, in a typical CRM, you're including like address information and marital status, maybe even social security number, dates of birth. You have all that stuff in this system as well?
I do, yeah. All of that is inside Monday. So I have one board on there called contacts, and that contacts board is where we store all of that. And we can take info from that board and mirror it to other boards. So let's say we have the board for account opening. That would mirror some of the columns from the contacts board, and you can change a field in either place and it's reflected in both. And so that contacts board is like our central source of truth for all that type of data for a client. Yeah.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, thanks a lot.
Question on the
Jordan
chat.
asked, can we go back to, I see, yeah, thanks. I'll read this. Can we go back to service calendar? You mentioned the 3-month blocks, what is covered and went throughout the year. Yeah, so I'll show that again. Let me pull up screen share. So this is a demo version. It might be slightly outdated, but it's still going to be pretty close. The specific topics covered in each of those blocks. So at the beginning of every block, a client receives a message, something very similar to this. Time to check in. If you've had major events that we should know about, let us know. During this time of year, here's what we'd like to talk about. And here we give them instructions to upload a file to a link, log into Right Capital and make sure stuff's updated, and if necessary, schedule some time with us. So that's the first thing that happens in every block as a client gets a message like that. Also kind of related is when, unless a client changes the default settings inside Monday, they will receive an email notification for tasks that they are assigned here or anything that we tag them in by just typing @ and client name. They'll get a notification for that. So after they get this share life updates notice, and they'll log into their board and see the specific topics. For block 1, updating right capital info and balance sheet, and then those projections if needed. IRA check-in, tax filing prep, revising cash flow priority order, and life planning stuff. Block 2, unclaimed money, investment performance, inheritances and windfalls, financial data security, investment allocation review, credit report, education savings, Social Security, student loan, estate planning, and then military and veterans benefits. Block 3 is life insurance review, equity compensation, tax planning stuff, employer benefits, property and casualty insurance, disability insurance, long-term care, and if they're a business owner, then some stuff specifically related to that. And then each of these blocks, each of these items in these blocks have 3 steps to reviewing it. So first we do what we call an initial screening and relevancy review. And that's just the servicing advisor looking at, does this topic even matter for this client? So like, for example, the one for military and veterans benefits, if that doesn't apply to them, we just immediately delete it. Nothing else needs to be done, right? And there's a specific time in the cycle when we do each of these 3 steps. The second part is doing a more in-depth review and updating what we call our data summary sheets, although that's changed a little bit. But basically just looking at the data for this topic for this client in more detail and asking the client for more info if we actually need it. And then the third part is creating action items for us and the clients related to this if needed. So some of these things, hopefully a lot of the time, we can review this without the client ever needing to actually schedule time and meet with us. We can just do it for them in the background if they send us updated info and any other relevant information. And then if a client does want to meet with us, then of course they have the ability to do so. But not everybody wants to meet with us like 3 times a year to cover this stuff.
So that data summary sheet, if you could just touch on that real briefly. So is that like, so for each specific planning topic, you know, hey, here's an expanded sort of you know, bullet point or whatever sort of narrative on, you know, hey, here's the client situation, what we've covered and the recommendations, that kind of thing?
Not quite. So I'll just pull it up here. I can screen share with you again. So this has changed a little, but it's basically a Monday document that has a consolidated view of a lot of key pieces of information that we need about every client. So similar to the contacts board that I mentioned before, where we have like the one central source of truth about demographic info and like address and all that kind of stuff. This was meant to be our one central place of like a reliable source of info about all these types of variables for financial planning stuff. We stopped using this because we decided that it was instead better to do it inside Right Capital now that they have notes fields tied to each of these topic areas instead of just like a general notes fields. And then we pre-fill those notes fields in Right Capital using a tool called Text Expander. So for example, if there's a field in Right Capital, a screen for disability insurance, we have a text expander snippet where you might just type like DI plus, and it expands a list of all these types of variables that we would look at pre-filled in that field in Right Capital, and then we can just have the information right there in context. So for disability insurance, here are the variables that we would look at. And this is a good example of a task that like somebody in a paraplanner role might be able to do for us. So they can pull up the source documents of insurance policy or tax return or whatever it is. They take these key variables that we'd specified hearing about and put that in Right Capital for the servicing advisor so that they can just look at the summary data. So we're not organizing this info as a separate sheet anymore. All of this was translated into text expander snippets that are put into Right Capital. You can see in this column here all the types of info that we look at.
But same concept, right? Where you're just putting it in a different place, but it's goes beyond just the, well, here's the Social Security benefit, right? There's more detail beyond that.
Right. So where Right Capital has a slider or something to input specific numbers, we'll use Right Capital's built-in features, right? But where they don't, we'll use the notes field on those screens in Right Capital to put in these types of variables. So for example, I don't remember, but I don't think Right Capital has a field to specify if a disability policy is own occupation or any occupation or some kind of hybrid, right? So we
Right,
would
yeah.
put that in the notes field. So that's just our way of trying to make sure we're actually being consistent in delivery for clients, delivery of our service. That
Hey,
we're
Steve.
actually doing the things that we claim to be doing.
Hey, Scott, I got one more quick question for you. When you have your document vault
Yeah.
in there, do you have that connected to an outside vault, like through Google or Dropbox, Box, or anything? Or are you using the proprietary one part of Monday for storage?
Nope, no need for outside tool. Monday has all that right there. So the
Okay.
only places we keep files are on those client boards in the file section. And then I back up to an external hard drive. I think it's weekly. That's set to go.
Okay, thanks.
What did you do in the Marines?
Lots of different things. I was my primary job they assigned me to was what they call engineer equipment mechanic. So fixing like bulldozers and forklifts and cranes and all that kind of stuff. And I did that for part of my time in. Other things I did were I was part of a route clearance team for a while, clearing IEDs in Iraq. I was a machine gunner for one deployment. I was a drill instructor training new recruits. I was a personal driver for a general. So I got to do lots of different stuff while I was in.
Wow. Thank you for your service, by the way. Holy smoke.
Thanks.
That's interesting. Okay, so
Yeah, some of that actually translates better than you might think to a career in financial planning, but some of it obviously did not.
the machine gunner part, just kidding.
Yeah, probably not. Something's gone really wrong if that becomes useful in my current life.
You're dating yourself, Sarah.
Do you have clients pay monthly or quarterly? We have found the mismatch of monthly fee payments and quarterly meetings cause clients to question value between meetings. Did you already answer that? Did I miss
Not
that?
directly. So we have an annual rate that is divided into monthly payments. Clients can cancel anytime they want with 30 days notice. And we only allow payments monthly or quarterly because the issue with custody, we don't want more than $500 for services more than 6 months out. And there hasn't really been an issue of a mismatch between payment schedules and meeting schedules, in part because of this system we've set up with the shared board where they can see over the course of a year everything that we're doing for them. I think that's part of the reason we did this is we wanted clients to see this as a long-term thing that runs on a recurring cycle and that's worth doing. And we always frame it as like an annual fee divided into monthly payments instead of like a monthly subscription fee. I think that helps with that.
Stephen, you stated that one of the reasons that you migrated to Monday.com was issues with retention and clients not really grasping the value completely of everything that you're doing because they couldn't visualize it. So has this resulted in a noticeable improvement?
Yes, and the way I know that's true is just look at our client retention rate. Like it seems like it should be true, and it feels like it's true when we have conversations with clients. But the way that we know it's true is just that simple data point of how many people stick with us compared to a year ago, and that has gone way up.
How about the facilitation of workflow between team members? Do you feel that it's resulted in more free time, less frustration, any of the above or other things for the people that work for you?
I think so. Yeah, that was one of my big goals in doing this too, is to make it easier for us to know who is assigned to do what and to have clear step-by-step instructions on how to do so. And I think it's working on that front, but we're still a really small firm. I mean, we're a team of like 4.5 right now. And we haven't yet developed a good career path pipeline as well as I'd like to. I mean, we just have to continue to grow to really be able to facilitate that in a meaningful way. But I think it's working well on that front. Yeah, that's definitely one of my goals here. And also one thing I did mention is a lot of these workflow items can be assigned to what Monday.com at least calls a team. So for example, a workflow item, a step of a workflow that says, complete this account application. Here's a link to do it. That wouldn't be assigned to an individual. That's assigned to like an admin support team. And then whoever on our team is assigned to that team, they see that workflow item on their to-do list. And a lot of things are built that way, with, again, that goal of future proofing being top of mind for us. As people change roles within the firm, as they go through a career path pipeline, they would be reassigned to different teams as appropriate.
See, my IT guy just did this. Okay, like a few weeks ago, he moved to Asana. And so I have a lot of my clients with him too. And at first I was like, I don't like this. Because I was worried, what if, like, I don't know this system, how do I know that if I go and put something over here into this like portal, that someone's gonna see it and it's not gonna get neglected? Because it's like, I know my IT guy, right? Like, I know if I email him, he's gonna respond in like a day or two. And then there's all this like stuff over here. And so far it's actually worked out a lot better because I get like a weekly email that shows me updates for like this and all of my client tasks. And like, there are different boxes in Asana where it says like, I don't know what the label is, but it says like pre-work, and then it says like in progress, and then it says completed and stuff like that. So it is actually better. I'll admit it. It is better.
The
Although
Kanban style might be set up as, yeah.
I don't like it though, because it's hard to upload files. Like if that wasn't intuitive to me in ways. Asana was not that intuitive, but I do feel this is a good transition. So it's so funny that you're saying that you're doing this too.
Yeah, we started using Monday for internal non-client stuff, maybe about 1.5 or 2 years before we started bringing any clients into it. So all of our internal workflows and stuff were built way before any client ever heard of Monday.com from us. And then we added the clients facing stuff later.
Like, how often do your clients actually log into this system? Like, do they see you talking to like someone else on your team? And are they like, oh, like I noticed that you guys were already talking about this, or hey, I noticed you're doing my my capital gains like statement, like downloading it or whatever. Like, do they say stuff to you about this, that they're noticing it, or do they just not even pay attention to what's going on there, unless they have to say something to you?
Yeah, clients are all over the place. Yeah, clients are all over the place, as you might expect. I mean, just like financial planning software or other tools that I'm sure all of you are used to using, clients are all over the place. Some of them, we were barely able to get them to create a login. Others are seemingly like proactively looking in there all the time, even when there hasn't been some kind of task assigned or notification sent to them that would cause them to. They're just going in anyway. And it's also cool that like sometimes we'll see clients, let's say you have a couple, they'll assign stuff to each other. Like the husband will assign something to the wife and say, hey, here's the file you need to do that. And here's the deadline and a description of like what needs to be done. And that's like, to me, a pretty good sign that they're buying into the intent behind this, is they just want to have one central place for all of their financial stuff to be kept. And I think the people who are more engaged with it tend to like it a lot more. And even the people who haven't been have all begrudgingly admitted that they see it as being valuable, that they just haven't spent the time to be more involved in there, but that they wish that they would do so. They just haven't yet taken the time to do it. But nobody has said that they think it's a bad idea or they want to go back to the old sort of hodgepodge way of doing things that we were before.
Comment from Dwight: this is awesome, feels similar to the tax and accounting PM systems. Very workflow heavy and service delivery over product sales, needing to facilitate back forth with the customer. Great work. Anthony Passerini, need to get to a meeting. Thanks to Stephen, excellent presentation. Give him my thanks.
Hey, Stephen, how do they get a notification? Is this an app where they're getting a separate notification, or are they getting a bump in their email? Like if you assign them a task or something was completed on your end, how are they getting notified to go into Monday?
Monday has pretty granular controls that every individual user, even guests, can set for themselves on how they want to be notified about things. And so by default, they will get an email, unless they change it, the settings, they will get an email when they're assigned something or when we tag them in conversation on there. And Monday does also have an app for mobile phones. It's not very good. I don't use it myself, in parts because I don't want to be bugged with a bunch of work stuff, notifications outside of work hours. I don't think many of our clients are using that, but a few people have mentioned it. Yeah. But that was one thing too, when we were selecting a tool and figuring out how we wanted to build this, is we didn't want to have a system where people have to proactively log into it to check for messages from us, right? So that was important that be the default way. Because we are in Monday all day long, our team is, because we do everything inside there now, including non-client stuff. But I know our clients aren't going to be for the most part. We have had a couple clients that said they use Monday already at work. And so those people said that they love this right away. But again, it's not about the tool. Like it's I think about the thinking behind it. A lot of tools can accomplish these same types of things besides Monday. And then I saw Maura here asked the question, how does client access and pricing work for Monday? Do they access as a guest? And are you paying for a seat for each client? We don't have to pay for every client with a guest account. That was, again, one of the factors in why we chose Monday over some alternatives. We pay for licenses for our team members, and we can have an unlimited number of guests and shared boards. Otherwise, that could get expensive pretty quick because we have, I don't know, 500 plus users in Monday easily.
Wow. So this, I mean, I just think about one of my clients that one of his office people, his like operational people recently retired, and she was doing Post-it notes. And they couldn't even get her to like really email. And I mean, I know that this type of thing is not uncommon, depending on what kind of clients you're serving, that may or may not work. But I mean, I've got to believe that this is definitely a move towards transparency. That's clear. But I also have to believe that this is a move towards perhaps standardizing or automating the provision of the more operational or administrative aspects of the service.
Yep.
So that with the freed up time, like you were saying, you can focus more on what really matters, which is the emotions and the psychology of the client.
Yeah, that was a big part of it for us. Yeah. And also just that, like a big part of the reason I started my own firm in the first place, instead of going to work somewhere else, like any reasonable person with no experience right out of college might do, is that I wanted to be able to work with clients that don't really have access to work with other firms because they don't have $1 or $2 million or whatever to invest and meet those minimums. And if we want to be able to work with those clients, then besides, we have to design everything in our business to be able to help facilitate much lower average revenue per client if we still care about doing good quality work for them. And this is a big part of how we do that. I tried other ways for a few years that weren't working as well for us. That was reflected in our client retention rate. And this is sort of like one example of like the types of lessons I've been learning along the way to help improve on that front.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think one of the terms that people would use is like scalability, and the question of does scalability reduce the personalization of service? But what you can see here is this has made your business more scalable, but also made it more personal.
Yeah.
So that looks like a good decision.
Yeah, I mean, there are plenty of other examples we can look to of big businesses, organizations that do this kind of thing, right? Like Starbucks is a good example. They serve, I don't know how many million customers every day, and every customer can get exactly the drink that they want, made the same at every location. And they have, must be thousands of different options with different combinations of things you can choose, right? This is like my very miniature version of that.
All right, folks. So I think I'm going to wrap here. Does anybody have a question at all before I go? Oh, do you track time? Someone's asking.
No, I've tried a few different ways for tracking time. We do have some hourly clients that we work with on just like limited scope, like limited range of what we're helping them with and not an ongoing basis. But tracking time sucks. We haven't found a good way to do it. I don't like it very much. Some people have found good ways that work for them. But what we do for hourly clients is we just make sure that we're clearly defining what is the scope, like what are the questions you want answers to. And once we have a clear definition of the scope, we just estimate how many hours it's going to be and offer to do the work for a flat rate. But there's probably room for improvements in how we're doing that. On Monday too, and many of these other similar types of tools does have a built-in tool for tracking time. In Monday, that's one of their column types. So we could have an item for hourly project for client X, And you can just click the little timer when you start working on it, and then you can click the little timer when you're done working, and it ties into outside tools that would invoice the client and send it to our QuickBooks and stuff.
Wow. Stephen, thank you so much. Stephen is gonna be at Immersion 2024. Like I said, I got one more spot. And thank you, everybody, for being here today. There will be
Yeah.
no March Transparency Meetup because of the immersion happening next month at this time. But I'll miss you all that will not be at immersion. And hopefully we can all reconvene later, on April 10th. So we will see you then. Thank you, Steve. So grateful to you. Grateful to everybody for being here.
Thank you. Thanks.
Happy Valentine's.
Bye, everybody.